Expanse month has expanded. I'm reviewing Caliban's War.
This is the introduction song. It's not very good, but it's not too long.
So, Caliban's War is the second book in the Expanse series, the sequel to Leviathan Wakes, and while I wouldn't say it's bad by any means, in fact I quite enjoyed it when I first read it, after looking back on it, I would say it is definitely the weakest in the series so far. Just so far. There's still 3 more books that they could fuck up with. But, see, for those of you who watch the show and haven't read the books, you might not quite realize that in the show they kind of combined the first 2 books together. Which I have no problem with, because that makes it feel more like one long continuous story, whereas in the books it feels more like the first one is just kind of one chunk, and the second one is just kind of another chunk. But also, the second one kind of repeats a lot of the same plot arcs from the first one. And there will be spoilers for the first Leviathan Wakes book in here, so if you're afraid of that, then you should probably leave now. Are you good? Okay. So, the second one still revolves around evil corporations experimenting with the protomolecule and trying to profit off of it, or do something for the good of humanity with it, or some combination of the two. And I won't say exactly who it is or what's going on, but it's really, really dumb when you try and treat it like a separate story. Whereas, again, in the show, it's just one continuous story. And so it just flows a lot better that way. But at the same time, I didn't quite realize that until I was near the end of the book. I went, oh, wait, this is just kind of a retread of Leviathan Wakes. I feel kind of ripped off. But also, the ending to this one is fucking fantastic. I won't say what it is, obviously, but it's a great cliffhanger ending, which immediately got me excited to read the third book. And this one did also introduce several new characters who worked great, honestly. Like, you know, the first one you just had Holden and Miller, and Miller was pretty good, Holden was alright. Whereas this one, Holden is still okay. He gets a little more annoying, but, you know, it's still nothing really deal-breaking. Miller's gone, obviously. But then you also get introduced to 3 new point-of-view characters. There's Praxidike Meng, who is a scientist who's looking for his daughter, because she went missing, and she is somehow connected to all these protomolecule experiments. And then you have Bobby, and I forget what her last name is, but and she's a Martian Marine who witnessed a protomolecule creature thing at the beginning of the book attack her unit and kill everyone except her. And so she is also connected to what's going on. And then we have probably my favorite point of view character from the entire series, Christian Avasarala. And I mean, man, this character is just, both in the books and the show, she's just so perfect. Like, in the books, she's absolutely hilarious because she just swears a lot. Like, she's a politician who works at the very, very highest levels of the Earth government. But she's also not very well known. She's like the man behind the man, sort of. I guess the closest equivalent to her position would be like the Secretary of State in the U.S., and I don't know what you'd call it in other countries, but whatever your equivalent to that is. And just again, she's obviously extremely intelligent. She always knows what's going on, and she's always 2 steps ahead of her competition. Well, she's usually 2 steps ahead of her competition. She does get blindsided a couple of times, but I mean, that's good because that just keeps her from being perfect. And once more, she's fucking funny because she's always just swearing, and you really would expect her to be more like she is in the show. And I should probably stop drawing comparisons between the book and the show because this is a review of the book, but it's hard not to talk about it at this point because, again, in the show she's a bit different because she's less vulgar and a little bit less rude, but they try and play her up as more dignified and intelligent and all that, but she's still, like, pretty much perfect, and, you know, they would have had to censor half of her dialogue anyways, so I get that. But again, in the books, just absolutely great, and I love her. So, beyond those 3 characters, though, there's not not a whole lot in here that really stands out. Because like I said, it's just kind of a retread of the first book, up until the end at least. Like at the end, it does pick up, I promise. And another problem would just be that the original crew of the Rocinante, which is, Holden, Naomi, Alex, and Amos, in this one, you get a little bit of character development for Amos, but you don't really get any for the others. And they, I don't know, they just don't feel like they have that much chemistry with them. Normally in this sort of thing, for starters, you'd expect there to be a larger crew, and that's something that irks me a little bit about the series in general, is that the core cast of characters is so small. But also, they just aren't... I mean, at this point in the series, they don't really feel like a family unit, or like they're comrades or anything, even though they sort of act like they feel that way towards each other. It's kind of weird, and honestly disappointing, but not a deal breaker. So, Caliban's War, while again it is the weakest in the Expanse series so far, is still not bad by any means. It's pretty good. I think it's a solid 6 out of 10, 6.5 out of 10. And honestly, if you read Leviathan Wakes and you wanted to keep going after that, just go ahead and read it. And by the time you get to the end, you'll be super excited for Abaddon's Gate, believe me.